as we were discussing last week, there is such national unease about the lifting of the evictions ban that the Labour Party said, well, if you're not going to take on board our constructive idea, which they say is to maintain the evictions ban until there have been 4 successive months of the number of homeless people falling, they said, well, if you're not going to take that on, then that's it. We have no time for you and we're going to try and sack you. An motion of no confidence is how you do that. And the standard parliamentary practice is that if one party puts down a motion of no confidence, the government basically supersedes it and tries to set the agenda itself by tabling a motion of confidence in itself, which is partly unnecessary, but partly just means they've got more speaking time. It just means they can present it more assertively. And that was debated for 2.5 hours, which was obviously largely coloured by the discussion of the housing issue. It's a motion of confidence in the government, so you can raise any issue you like, but it was largely covered by housing. And it has to be said, even the Count Corla, who often has to remain in character for the stewardship of all of these debates, even at the end of it, he was like, this has been pretty disgraceful.
Let's be honest, Richard.
The conduct of the debate and any level of nous, or there was very little decorum or very little material illustration of how practically urgent this is for a lot of people. And there was a lot of shouting across the floor and very little being offered by way of solutions.
Interesting. So that's his definition of why it was a disgrace, was that there was too much shouting and roaring and a bit of heckling and all that sort of stuff.
Not keeping up with the decorum of the House.
Gotcha.
Stuff, yeah.
I would say it was a disgrace for another reason, and that was the lack of respect for the urgency of the matter.
Yeah.
The level of worry that is out there for hundreds and thousands of families across the country who've already been handed notices of termination. And it felt at times, and I'm angry about it, it felt at times like it was the worst open mic night at the worst comedy club in the world.
Yeah.
And you had pathetic, I'm using that word, you had pathetic attempts at humour in this situation. And crap barbs being thrown at each other across Leinster House.
Well, name names. Are we allowed name names?
No, I'm not. I don't think they need to. But there was one instance where a TD for the government was talking about, with regard specifically for the eviction ban, talking about it's like giving free sweets to children.
Yeah.
We're talking about roofs over heads in a housing crisis. A housing crisis which has prevailed for at least 5 years now and is at its worst time ever. And
well, just to add, context to that again, just that it was like giving free sweets to children, that it's fun on the short term, but it's not healthy on the long term.
Popular in the short term, but does nothing for the greater
That was the
project.
comparison to the eviction ban.
Does that sound like a comparison to you?
As an analogy, it's questionable. The idea that you're trivializing something like making people homeless by likening it to giving free sweets to kids. Like, it's one thing to say that what we propose to do is best in the long term, irrespective of the small short-term harm.
Yes, exactly.
You can make that argument, and that's the crux of the government's argument. That's the argument the government made last week when it won its counter motion. It's the argument it's making today, and will have been making again before this airs. Will have been making in the debate on the Sinn Féin motion, trying to extend the evictions ban again. That's fine, but the parallel with a sweet shop or giving out free sweets to kids as being short-term popular but not good in the long run is a slightly insensitive one.
And it wasn't slightly though.
But I'm trying to be
yeah,
more.
but like,
it was actually horrifying when I heard it. I was shocked so much. We were all texting at the time, and I couldn't. I also think the person who delivered that line isn't an inexperienced politician. This is somebody who's been in politics for quite some time and knows better than to make comparisons like that.
Yeah, and yes, I mean, I know that you tweeted, Gav, saying that, people in the opposition benches were a little bit shocked about that. Were people in government not shocked about that? Or is it just yay us, boo them? It was
kind of hard to... often these confidence motions become yay us, boo them, because if you think about what is at stake, strictly speaking, when you're talking about a confidence motion, it's do you sack the government or not? Do you call a general election or not? And it can become very binary in those circumstances where people go, yay, the government, boo everyone else. We're the only ones who have a practical plan. The opposition could not be trusted. Or why would you plunge the country into months of uncertainty because there'd be an election and it might take a while to form a government again. So that's the way it is thought of. To answer your direct question as to whether there was any gasps on the government benches, it was difficult to tell. Certainly on the shot within camera, the few colleagues of the deputy concerned didn't offer any side, or they didn't, their eyes didn't bulge or go.
Never mind that though, Gav. Really? Never mind that though, Gav. Like, government TDs are a gossipy bunch. They will text about anything which is said in the Dáil chamber.
Yeah, I got some text about other things, but not about that.
Interesting.
No.
Interesting.
There didn't appear to be any immediate consternation among government TDs about.
No, and to be honest, I was watching it live. There was it literally came out and passed over like as if it was nothing. I was like, I literally was like, did I mishear that? I was like, what did he just say that?
And again, just to underline the point, as Gavin, you said as well, It's not about whether or not you're politically opposed to or in favour of the eviction ban or its relative merits. The government clearly of the view that politically, and they believe that this is the best way of dealing with housing, is to go along with this, with ending this ban, and in the hope that more landlords will survive and thrive in the market, all that sort of stuff, and that there will therefore be more places for people to live in the long term. But it's about the trivialisation and the fact of using it as some sort of a joking matter at a time when we've seen, over the last number of weeks since it was announced that this was going to happen, this is the most controversial decision this government is going to make. And it has real human impact. We talked about this exactly last week, that we often lose sight, or that politics seems to lose sight of the actual impact of the things that they squabble about in the Dáil really, really churlishly and really, really childishly.
Yeah.
And again, this just happens again. And this isn't the first time. It's not going to be the last time, I think, we talk about how poorly things are conducted in the Dáil.
If you were sitting at home with an eviction notice on your kitchen table and you were watching that debate, I think you would be absolutely devastated. You'd be like, there's nobody's going to help me.
You really would feel like, with all the best will in the world, you would feel like your concerns are being trivialised, are being made into a punchline. Like you said, the open mic night, that it's all about the zinger that might get your sentence on the news, because it's a very competitive field trying to make the cut for a news.
I would also say as well that, to be fair, there were definitely, and we were texting, there were some TDs who did make very considered and very measured contributions. But unfortunately for those individuals, because there was so much noise and shouting and worrying, that the kind of considered and actually, informative contributions sort of, they lost their place because there was so much chaos happening around those contributions.
They were very much the exception to the rule, and there was very little, if anything, by way of new ideas being put forward. Like, for example, I mentioned the Labour Party's, what they saw as their constructive proposal to extend this until you've had 4 months of homelessness falling. I'm not even sure if in any of their speaking contributions today, if any Labour TDs made that point again, that they were none of them even said there is one possible fix here, or one possible halfway house. Even something that's already been out there wasn't put on the agenda again today. It was everyone shouting about what we have done, what we intend to do, what's going on. Your government is heartless. No, our government cares more than you do. It was all just a bit tawdry.